Broadly speaking, it's time to officially mark the passing of the traditional average American household. Rather than a mythical melting pot in which people of different backgrounds meld together into a homogeneous household type, aka the married couple with 2.5 kids, we are actually a country that's fragmented by household dynamics, dependent on gender, ethnicity, age, and income. As marketers, what does this mean for us right now? First off, it's time to divvy up our demographics, starting right on the brief. For many categories, our target is always the busy mom with 2 kids, and with good reason. She is often a dominant, if not the primary shopper for many products. So when we claim that singles account for 35% of all consumer spending, or that 28% of households are comprised of married couples without kids, you might rightfully point out that we're talking about minorities here. However, these are not insignificant minorities. In fact, these numbers are about the same as the numbers we see for Hispanics, boomers, and millennials, and we know you've come around to targeting them. Better yet, unlike those groups, which often require drastic overhauls to your marketing plan, radical demographics are more likely to be nuanced versions of more traditional demographic segments. Thus, targeting them requires adjustments rather than overhauls. So rather than replacing your current target, we recommend supplementing your target with these additional demographics. Of course, we don't recommend targeting all of these niches at once, but instead finding the ones that are most appropriate for your brand.
Are you still skeptical? We understand. After all, this seems like a risky proposition compared to sticking with what's worked for years. But the times are undeniably changing, and there are ways to mitigate this risk. Lucky for you, you live in a world that boasts a slew of non-traditional marketing tactics, allowing you to experiment with lower cost, lower risk efforts and measure the impact. Better yet, today's consumers have an unprecedented ability to self-select their own communities, another trend from our 10 trends, called niche networks and micro-communities, which we'll save for another time. For instance, 35 million people on Facebook in the U.S. have broadcasted their unmarried status and can be targeted via Facebook's advertising infrastructure. Or, if you want to connect with female heads of households, perhaps a well-targeted blogger outreach campaign will lead to prolonged, meaningful engagements with these consumers. At Upshot, we help many brands leverage non-traditional media to connect with focused targets.
Finally, there is another way to mitigate the risk of targeting these niches. Marketers who are part of a house of brands have a unique opportunity to use line extensions or emerging products to target these populations, without the risk of alienating the core consumer for their primary brands. If this is something you'd like to investigate further, we at Upshot can certainly lend a hand.
We want to point you to a few additional resources where you can get smarter on the topic of radical demography. As we mentioned earlier, you can track this topic on Upshot's company blog at theawesomeblog.net. A recording of this webinar is also available on the blog. A great way to track the Awesome Blog's content is to follow us on Twitter at Upshot_agency. Additionally, the most recent of Upshot's famous potty postings takes a more lighthearted approach to the topic of radical demography and is an entertaining way to teach colleagues about the topic. It's available on the blog, or just contact one of us for the PDF.
For those who want to delve further into the topic, a couple of great places to start are pewsocialtrends.org and the census.gov sites. Additionally, Ad Age and Ad Week both have helpful articles on the topic. Just search for the titles on your screen. And that wraps up today's webinar. Thanks a lot for listening.